Okay, recording in progress. Okay, so Professor Hu Jiechen is an assistant professor in religious studies at the Department of Philosophy and History at the Yuelu Academy at Hunan University. His PhD in religious studies is from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and his dissertation was a study of the Wendi Chuanshu, the complete works of the Divine Lord of Wenchang, a philological history of the Wenchang Dijun cult of the Qing dynasty. His main dissertation advisor was Professor Late Qing. Professor Hu Jiechen has already a number of, even prior to finishing his dissertation and after, has published a number of very influential articles on the cult of Wenchang, and especially its in the late imperial period, and especially in the Sichuan areas. And he's also he also researches spirit writing, which is a practice that is very connected to the cult of Wenchang. So he has published extensively on spirit writing as well, and on also the philology of the various canons that relate to Wenchang. So he was also very involved in the recently published Daoguang publication on the Daoguang Jiyao project, which publishes a variety of studies on the late imperial canon Daoguang Jiyao. So he was a core researcher as well as an editor in that project. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Professor Hu Jiechen, who will talk today about a preliminary study on the Dipper altar dedicated to Wenchang, Confucian altars in late Qing, North Guizhou, and its Sichuan origins. Please welcome Hu Jiechen.
Okay, thank you, Elena and Stefania, for organizing this lecture series and the very nice introduction. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming. So I will share my screen, and please let me know if there's any problem hearing my voice or seeing the PPT. Okay, can you see the PPT? Thank you. Today, I would like to share some ongoing project on the network of Confucian altars Rutan in mid-late Qing, southwest China. So before we enter the world of the Confucian altars, please allow me to introduce some previous research that finally led me here. Well, let's start with a question raised by Philip Clark nearly 20 years ago. Is there a popular Confucianism? His question was based on the study on the spirit writing halls in modern Taiwan, the Taiwan Ruantang, especially the tradition of Ruzong Shenjiao. So actually quite a few scholars, not only Philip Clark, but also like Paul Katz, Wang Jianchuan, Fan Chunwu, and quite a few scholars based in Taiwan, they have clearly noted the existence of Confucianism as the self-identification of the organization, as well as the corresponding Confucianism as the label of the spirit writing literature and rituals in these groups or communities. So in Philip Clark's study, the so-called popular Confucianism means that Confucian ideas and the practices are appropriated through specifically popular readings of them, and especially in popular religious traditions. So years ago, inspired by these studies, I have repeatedly explored and asked myself whether there were predecessors of such popular Confucianism during the imperial period, or what types of groups in late imperial China could also be included in the ethic category of popular Confucianism. So And thanks to recent breakthroughs in various aspects of Ming and Qing religion, including spirit writing communities, morality books, Taoist scriptures, Taoist authors, and so on. So there are so many inspiring studies. For example, Daniel Burton Rose on the Peng family in early Qing, and of course, Wenchang Guzhou, brilliant works on canons, these Lüzu canon, Wenchang canon, Guangdi canons, and a lot of kinds of morality books and spirit writing communities, and legitines on the communities especially dedicated to Lüzu, and Foucault's study on Liumen, and of course, Elena Valusi's study on female alchemy and internal alchemy and other communities and so on. So not mentioning the studies on the redemptive society in Late Qing and the Republic China. And another field is that we are fully aware that many of the spirit writing and Taoist groups were mainly composed of Confucian literati, and some of them even maintain a Confucian identity throughout. So especially the spirit writing communities dedicated to Wenchang and Guangdi, and some community dedicated to Lüzu. And secondly, we have a clearer understanding of the important role played by the Confucian ritual specialists, such as Li Shen, or maybe we can say ritual master or master of ceremony, thanking to the studies by Liu Yonghua and Li Fengmao and other scholars. So of course, not all important studies and scholars have been mentioned. So I just want to give you a general impression of the niche of the Confucian author here. And actually, the Confucian author is closely related to the above traditions and has a clear identity of another kind. Amicably, some groups call themselves Rutan, while the others call themselves Rujiao. And the groups defined by the ethical term Confucian author in this particular report have the following characteristics. First, they identify themselves with Confucianism, of course, because they call themselves Rutan or Rujiao, right? And second, they integrate the three teachings, the Confucianism, Taoism, and the Buddhism. And third, they practice spirit writing, often with Wenchang, Lüzu, and Guangdi as patron deities of the altar. And fourth is that they often provide services such as Zhai, the retreat, the funeral ritual, and the Jiao, the offering or the blessing ritual. We don't have much previous studies specifically on the Confucian altar. As far as I know, David Graham might be the very first one who mentioned it. So, in his book, The Folk Religion in Southwest China, he mentioned the Rutan in Sichuan. He says, whether or not this religion spread from Sichuan into adjoining provinces, and when and by whom it was originated, I have never been able to learn. Certain it is that it grew steadily during the days of the Republic until it had temples in most of the cities of Sichuan. So he really noticed these kind of communities in Republic Sichuan. And until now, we can say that this tradition has already thrived before the Republic. And since then, I mean, after David Graham, researchers studying local opera and music in Sichuan have also noted similar groups for a time. For example, in last century, Yu Yi did some anthropological study in the Liangping area in Sichuan about these groups named Rujiao, and more recently, Gan Shaochen also have done some research and anthropological study on the Chengdu Rutan based on the text Ruyuan Wengao. Oh, these scholars are in the field of the local opera of Sichuan. Sometimes they were regarded as experts of Chuanju and or these kind of traditions. And in recent years, more specific studies on Rutan have begun to appear. Zhu Mingchuan has published a series of studies on, on related groups in Sichuan for both documentary perspectives and anthropological perspectives. And for these two 如坛经典及其应用，以四川江油地区的紫霞潭为例。Another one is 庚子川东神教出 working with the typology of different spirit writing traditions, especially in the Rutan traditions. And I myself also wrote an article months ago to compare several ritual texts transmitted between Sichuan and Guizhou in the Late Qing dynasty. I hope it will come out in the next year. So the subject of this paper is the Wenchang Doutan, the deeper altar dedicated to Wenchang. And hereafter we'll use the abbreviation deeper altar, which was active in the Zunyi prefecture of Guizhou in the late Qing dynasty. As with many other local communities of ritual experts, we have been unable to find any relevant information in the official histories and the local gazetteers. But however, I have collected quite a large amount of relevant ritual literature from rare book markets in the southwest China over the past few years. And you can see, these are the woodblock prints with clear dates of publication. For example, this is 光绪29年 and this is 同治元年, this 同治6年, 同治7年. So they are not handwritten manuscripts of ritual manuals. They are in woodblock print. It is important to mention because nowadays there is a whole industry fabricating ritual manuals recently, especially in the Hunan area. And I won't be surprised if we can find any similar industry in Southwest China. But these print editions are much more reliable because for these print editions, our knowledge of traditional bibliography and the materiality of books can help, right? We can use our 版本学, the knowledge of 版本学 to have a basic judgment. And they are also more reliable. These materials can help us to restore a certain degree of information about their religious practices and the communities. So these 4 books were Wenchang Yizhi, and it has 4 sets. So 初级, 二级, 三级, 四级, and for each set has 4 volumes. So 16 volumes in all. They were made of Basque paper, 皮纸, and or it's also known as 棉纸, I mean the paper, the materiality of the book. And the fonts are soft fonts. You can see these are 软体字 rather than the hard fonts. So both the paper and the font are typical attributes of the books in late imperial Southwest China. So we are quite confident that, okay, these books were not fabricated. They are definitely published and produced in late Qing Southwest China. Also, most of these documents have been now scattered in the form of single volumes in the hands of different booksellers. We can still recover their general appearance through continuous collection. Actually, I collect all these 16 volumes from different booksellers in the past few years. And we can see some are the very first edition. For example, this one could be the very first edition in 同治元年, while this one, it is the 初级, but it's a reprint in 光绪29年. Except Wenchang Yizhi, here are the other 3 collections. The Wenchang Doutan Quanke, which was published in 同治4年 and in 同治3年的三教列圣奏告, and a handwritten manuscript named the Wenchang Midian. Actually, at first, I didn't realize that they belonged to the same religious network. I noticed them because some of the names of the authors and characters appear repeatedly in these books, such as, for example, Guizhou, right? These names appeared repeatedly, just like here, they are also Guizhou. And the name Gongquan Zhen also appeared repeatedly within the text, in the preface or in the fanli. Then I realized, okay, they might belong to the same religious network. So first of all, I would like to introduce the origin of the name Deep Altar dedicated to Wenchang. In a preface of Wenchang Yizhi, the one revealed by the Divine Lord of Wenchang by spirit writing, it is stated that, so I opened the deeper altar with the great transformation. At the beginning of the present dynasty, I revealed to Master Pen Dingqiu and explained its wonders. Later, in Zhan altar in Guizhou and the Taiyi altar, I revealed to Jin, Wang, Hua, Song, and the others, hoping that they would pass on this path and follow it forever. Now, all of you in Guanghua altar want to inherit this good deed, so I specially pass on compilation of rituals to you. So, Deeper Altar belongs to a system in the heavenly realm, actually, which was created by the Divine Lord of Wenchang. So, we 大化开文昌斗坛, this was, the preface was revealed by the Divine Lord of Wenchang, right? So this Wu refers to Wenchang. And its human practitioners were all representatives of medians in spirit writing altars dedicated to Wenchang, including Pen Dingqiu, Pen Zi, of Suzhou in the early Qing dynasty, and the leaders of the Zhantan in Dading, Qianzhi Zhantan. Right? This Jing refers to the leader of the Zhantan in Dading, Guizhou, and the Taiyitan in Qingzhou, probably in Shandong, and in the mid-Qing, all these are in mid-Qing dynasties. So in the Late Qing dynasty, when this preface was revealed, the successor was a group called Guanghua. Actually, we will find out that it was named Guanghua Tan in Zunyi Prefecture in Guizhou province. So how can we know that all these books, the books I just showed, belong to one community, while we found the books scattered in the market belong to different booksellers or bibliophiles? So the direct evidence is found in a paratext of Wenchang Doutan Quanke. It is mentioned that although the Sanjiao Ke is complete, one cannot rely on this book alone to perform the rituals directly. First of all, you should read the rules and the regulations of the altar provided in the book Juemeng Huiyang. Then refer to the format of the various ritual instruments in Wenchang Yizhi. Then find the Sanjiao Baogao as a reference for inviting the deities and summoning the divine generals. And finally, read the Wenchang Midian to understand the most mysterious and subtle points. Practice it yourself, and there will be no regret. So I have not yet found an independent edition of Juemeng Huiyang. So we can see that all these books, Sanjiao Ke, also known as Wenchang Doutan Quanke, and Juemeng Huiyang, Wenchang Yizhi, Sanjiao Zhougao, Wenchang Midian, belong to the same network. But I haven't found any independent edition of Juemeng Huiyang, but we can find some useful information from the paratext of the surviving documents. So actually, Juemeng Huiyang was a ritual manual revealed when Guanghua Tan was first established. So it might be the very first ritual text they received. And the Wenchang Yizhi was revealed afterwards as an expanded version of the Juemeng Huiyang. According to the fanli of the fourth set of the Wenchang Yizhi, the book Juemeng Huiyang was compiled at the beginning of Deep Altar, but it is rarely seen in the world by then. So some of the ritual instruments are attached to the end of the book as appendixes. Therefore, as shown in the picture, we can still see some of the contents of the book 绝梦回阳. So it now appeared as appendix to the Wenchang Yizhi in the very last volume of the very last set. And the content of which is indeed the samples of ritual documents. So we can see all these are the sample documents for this funeral ritual or blessing rituals. For example, the very first one is 春教表书文士. So the 绝梦回阳 should be a text something like a 文简 or a collection of ritual documents. And so after the 绝梦回阳, the second collection was Wenchang Yizhi, just as we showed at the very beginning. It has 4 sets, 一共4集, and 16 volumes in all, and not all the exemplars in my own collection are the original edition. So for example, the very first volume of the first set, it is a reprint, but these 3 editions might be the very original editions. And all the contents of the book Wenchang Yizhi were completed no later than 1864, 的同治3年, but the published versions were divided into at least 2 batches. The first is 1862 in 同治 the first, and 1865 the 同治 the fourth. Afterwards, they were repeatedly reprinted. So as we can see, there's a record on the history of its publication. So it says, now in the eastern part of Zunyi, the eastern part of Zunyi refers to Meitan. The outer congregation has published the first and second sets, and the third and the fourth sets have been accomplished but not carved into wood blocks and published, and then they were burnt by fire. Now you Dao Yi, Dao Quan, Dao Ming, etc. from the Guizhou altar again asked the deities to help you continue to publish the last 2 sets. Now, fortunately, they have been accomplished. I hope you will soon carve the wood blocks and publish the manuscript so that it can be accessed by the world and the future generations. So we can know why they were published in 2 batches, because at first after they were all received by spirit writing, but the last 2 sets was burnt before carved into wood blocks. And so the 4th set, the content of the Wenchang Yizhi, the very first set is ritual documents for the death ritual, for the Zhai Yi, and the second and third set is ritual documents for the blessing ritual, or Jiao Yi. And the 4th set is the ritual documents for the celebration of the birthdays of the gods, with a part of the content of 绝梦回阳 at the end as the appendices, as we just showed. Let's see, this is the picture from the very first set. So you can see it's a 表文 for funeral rites. This is 建处事表, the document for the funeral rites for hermits, and these are for gentries. So all the book is just a collection of ritual documents. And then the third collection is called 三教报告. It has 3 volumes, and it was reviewed to the Guanghua Tan in 1862 and published by the Guizhou Tan in 1864. So just like the name shows, it's all about precious declarations of the deities. And like this is one page of the index, the 目录, and we can see it's all about precious declarations, and also with the ritual context. For example, this 经仙告 was used when reciting Dongjing and practicing 笔录, a very specific spirit writing technique. So the whole book is a collection of precious declarations with their ritual context. This is an example about the 经仙告. They have 2经仙告, and we see it follows the very typical format of precious declarations in the Taoist tradition. And the last one is Wenchang Midian. It has 3 volumes, but it's not in woodblock print. They are all handwritten manuscripts. Actually, I speculate that the book Wenchang Midian may not have been ever published in woodblock prints, but was circulated in the form of handwritten manuscripts among the members, maybe especially the members who have passed the initiation, or even the ordained ordained priests in the deeper altar. So the content is esoteric knowledge of ritual performing, and it was also revealed in the Guanghua altar and transmitted to the Guizhou altar. Let's see some samples. We can see these are the incantations. They have to use during the ritual performing, and of course the way of internal visualization, and the document for ordination for the Wenchang Doutan, the 度支牒是 for the Wenchang Doutan. So it's the ordination document for the deep altar. And the last one is Wenchang Doutan Quanke. It's also known as 三教科仪. And unlike the Wenchang Yizhi, the 16-volume collection, this is also a very big collection, which has 24 volumes, and it is a collection of many similar ritual documents. Oh, sorry. The Wenchang Doutan Quanke is a set of ritual sections and texts, but not like Wenchang Yizhi. Wenchang Yizhi is a collection of many similar ritual documents, but this is a very structured guideline introducing the ritual step by step. Well, we can see that Wenchang Doutan Quanke from the volume 1 to volume 5, it is the ritual of Yingzhai. So it's the process of the whole ritual for the funeral rites, and volume 6 to volume 9 are for the Yangjiao, for the blessing rites. And then after volume 9, there are all other independent rituals. So this is not like Wenchang Yizhi. Actually, it's not a Wenjian. It's more like Li Chengyi or some this kind of ritual manuals. So let's move on to the Confucianism part after introducing all these bibliographical information. Actually, the preface to the Sanjiao Baogao contains a set of narratives about the unity of the 3 religions. This kind of discourse is quite common. We can see, for example, this talk about Buddha explained the teaching of purity, and Taishang Laojun established the ritual of transcendence of the dead. Although there are different kinds of teachings, they are different policies directing to the same destination. Therefore, so all these rhetoric are very common when we read all these texts referring to the Sanjiao, to the 3 teachings. But the only difference is that here it talk about the important role Wenchang played, that divine lord of primordial sovereign, which is the Yuanhuang Dijun, is another name of the Wenchang, who was a Confucian at first, and did into a saint and actually realized the Buddhist teachings and became a true immortal. So why Wenchang could be could reveal all the information referring to the Sanjiao. He was worshipped by all three religions and admired by all the world. So he opened the door of convenience to save all thinking beings. So this is the rhetoric of these books used, and actually it's quite common. But here's something special in the ritual part, not the theological or the philosophical part. The pantheon of the deeper altar with the deified Confucius in the ritual we can see. For example, in the Doutan Quanke, the ritualist had to pay homage to deified Confucius first. 至心礼谢, the very first one is the 儒教主文宣王道高德厚莫能量孝信虔诚孝信虔诚生礼谢福祭王者上天堂. And this you can see 儒教主文宣王. So the deified Confucius is the very first god they are paying homage to when doing the ritual performing. And then the three treasures of Buddha, 佛法僧, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then the three treasures of Taoism, 道经师, the Dao, the way, and the scripture, and the master. Similarly, in the Sanjiao Baogao, it's still the deified Confucius ranking the very first place in the whole book. For example, the very first precious declaration is 孔圣诰, so 心坛世纪四水乳中. And we can see the title that 大圣大慈, 大悲大愿大圣大慈大成至圣先师孔子文宣肃王心如正视天尊. Actually, it's not a random creation only found in this deeper art. Actually, these titles, 文宣肃王心如正视天尊, could also be found in other Confucian altars in Yunnan and Sichuan. So maybe they belong to a very popular tradition in late Qing, southwest China. And not only the deified Confucius, actually in the third volume of the Sanjiao Baogao, most of the deities are Confucian sages and scholars. For example, Fu Xi, Cang Jie Shen Long Xuan Yuan, Yao Shun Yu Tang, and also Chen Zhu Lu Wang. And interestingly, Zi Lu played a very important role in some altars. Like he is like a Confucian version of the Wang Ling Guan, maybe because he was brave. So I think they worshipped Zi Lu in these Confucian altars as they did to Wang Ling Guan in these Taoist traditions. Besides the Yin Zhai Yang Jiao, both the funeral rites and the blessing rites section of the Wenchang Doutan Quanke is like a simplified version of the Yellow Register Retreat. So it's a abridged version of Huanglu Zhai. They re-identifies the ritual with Confucianism. There are also dedicated Buddhist and Taoist clergy or priests among the ritual experts. That's also an interesting point. For example, it says, although the deeper altar is a combination of three teachings, the Confucianism takes precedence. If you were a Taoist before, you should write venerating Confucianism and observing Taoism in the ritual documents. If you were a Buddhist before, you should write venerating Confucianism and observing Buddhism in the ritual documents. It means we should not forget our originals. And similarly, it can be seen that the ritual experts participating in the deeper altar can still retain their Buddhist and Taoist identities. And it, for example, it says, no matter who attends the altar to perform the rituals, regardless of which region he belongs to, Confucianism, Buddhism, or Taoism. Their clothing is determined according to their religion, and there's no need to adhere to a uniform dress. So it could also imply that there was some cooperation among Rutan and local ritual experts, such as 火炬道士, 法师, or 香花僧. That's why it has the regulation that you can still keep your own clothing according to your own religion. No need to adhere to a uniform dress. And similarly, in the death ritual of departure, the targets of the rituals also explicitly cover people of the three religions, the three teachings. Of particular interest are the rituals for clergy and the laities of other religions, including and not limited to various types of divination practitioners. For example, these are the funeral ritual documents for kan yu, xing shi, right? These are divination practitioners. And for Buddhist and Taoist clergy and laities. So these are the funeral rites documents for 俗奉道表 laity Taoist, right? 出家道表 the monastic Taoist priest, and 俗奉佛表 受戒僧尼表 寻常僧尼表 俗持金刚经表 and so on. So different types of and not only the Buddhist and Taoist clergy and laities, and also local shamans and different types of practitioners. For example, also the funeral rites for the Wu Shi, for the 俗持长斋表, 俗持观音斋表, etc. And another issue of concern is the degree of acceptance of departures' Confucian identity by the society at that time. But unfortunately, due to the lack of records, I have not yet found any useful clues outside the community. So, but there's one preface by Fu Daheng included in the Deeper Outer text. It also provides some interesting information, but I haven't found any external information. So the preface was written by Fu Daheng, who was the magistrate of Zunyi Prefecture in the 1871. So Fu Daheng did not reject the departures' identification of Confucianism. And in fact, he wrote a preface to the reprint of the book to show his support. And I won't go through all the details, but there are some interesting details. So for example, he mentions that the departure was resisted by monastic Buddhist monks at that time. And the services provided by the departure were free of charge. So we can only find, maybe this is the only one external record of how it, what kind of role it plays in the society by that time. And I will keep digging to see if we can find more evidence. And another interesting record is this book, this manuscript was found on the internet, but I haven't, it was already sold out when I noticed it. You can see it is a record of the departure provided service of ritual deaths in Zunyi in 1994. So you see, 福卫亲王苏轼生于民国壬子年7月12日，己时，系贵州省遵义县板桥中四党。I can't recognize this character. 生人士. So he died in the 共和国甲戌年, which is 1994, in 贵州遵义市. So we can see that even in late 20th centuries, there are also these departure active in the Zunyi city, not prefecture anymore, and providing death rituals, funeral rituals for the local people. And at last, let's talk about its relationship with Sichuan finally. The two most important authors are Guanghua Tan and Guiji Tan. So we can find this information in the cover page of these books. For example, we can see here, 板存遵义永礼四度站贵集坛. So we know that Guiji Tan was located in Sidu Town, Zunyi County, in the Zunyi Prefecture. And we can also, similarly, we can also locate the Guanghua Tan in the Meitan County in Zunyi Prefecture. Actually, so this is where the Guanghua Tan located, and this is where the Guiji Tan located, and they all belong to the Zunyi Fu in Qing Dynasty. And one important fact of the Zunyi Prefecture, it belonged to Sichuan before 1727. In the Gazetteer of Zunyi Prefecture, it says that Zunyi first belonged to the ancient Liang, then to the Bi, and later to Bashu, so which refers to Sichuan, right? In the 5th year of the Yongzheng reign of our dynasty, it was cut into the North Guizhou, and Guizhou began to grow in size to 2,000 li wide. It contributed half of the taxation of land and customs for the whole province. So that also explains why all these communities have a strong connection to Sichuan, because before the 1727, the Zunyi Prefecture did belong to Sichuan actually. And at the very beginning, we talked about the prehistory of the deep art, and the preface reviewed by Wenchang mentioned four persons, Jin, Wang, Hua, Song, right? Actually, I proved in another paper that they were for spirit writing mediums in Chongqing in 18th centuries. Not in Guizhou actually, but spiriting altar named Yongzheng Tan, which is also dedicated to Wenchang. And they were active in early 18th centuries, before the, in early Yongzheng reign or even before. And the Jin specifically refers to Jin Bencun, who moved from Chongqing to Dading around 1730s. And actually, he moved from Sichuan to Guizhou in late Yongzheng and early Qianlong and brought their rituals and spirit writing techniques there. He was, let's see. So this part belongs to the contemporary Chongqing. It belonged to Sichuan in Qing Dynasty. So unfortunately, I have no idea where the Yongzheng Tan was located, but all I know, it was located in Chongqing. So Jin Bencun moved from Chongqing to Dading. I can say moved because I think he traveled several times between Chongqing and Dading. He learned his technique of spirit writing and some ritual performing, and received several scriptures and brought them back to Dading and established his own spirit writing altars named Zhantan. And between the 1730s to the 1740s, Jin Bencun cooperated with Liu Qiao, who was the magistrate of Qingping County at that time, and they compiled the famous Wendi Quanshu, the very first edition of the Wenchang canon. But interestingly, most ritual texts were excluded in this version. By the late 19th century, the ritual texts compiled by Jin Bencun had been already transmitted to Meitan. How can we know that? Because there was a book named Wenchang Shengdian. I believe it was at first compiled by Jin Bencun. He included all the ritual texts in it after Liu Qiao's death, something like produce his own Wenchang canon, but I haven't found the original edition. The earliest exemplar I have ever found is Daoguang 2年 edition. It's 1822 exemplar housed in the Nanjing University. So we know that no later than the late 18th century, the Wenchang Shengdian includes all the ritual texts compiled by Jin Bencun, has already been transmitted to the Meitan from Dading. How can we know that? Because Gongquan Zhen, who was active in Meitan in late Qing period, received this Wenchang Shengdian, and just like we said, it contained a lot of esoteric knowledge, including these ordination documents. And one entry is about the Doutan Fa Pai. And we see the 道本公事非可云斯，技能奉无，勇往修之，And we can also find similar ones in the earlier Wenchang Shengdian published by Jin Bencun. We can see here, 派月道本公事非可云斯，技能奉无，勇往修之。And also there are some mistakes in the later manuscript. For example, the 句首误持. Here, the 句首误持. Apparently, this 句 is a wrong character, right? And 听师提思. Here, 听思提协. Apparently, 听师提思 makes more sense. And 升天一阶汝当三思, the rhymes is correct. And here, 汝当三思升天一阶, the rhymes is incorrect. So we can say that there are some mistakes during the transmission, but we can see that this Fa Pai was really received or transmitted from the Jin Bencun tradition. But there might be some missing links. All I can say is the textual transmission. I'm not implying that the historical Gongquan Zhen was the disciple of Jin Bencun himself or the disciple of Jin Bencun, but it is still possible because we can see that in the deeper outer traditions, the historical Jin Bencun was actually deified. This 司徒金仙 refers to the historical Jin Bencun. It said 斗坛演教贵殿司徒身大定而阐扬前榜边广化而显应播出 because the historical Jin Bencun, the deified Jin Bencun had also revealed a novel named 广化新编. So we can definitely link this 司徒金仙 to the historical Jin Bencun. So we can see that the ritual text Jin Bencun transmitted from the Sichuan was finally transmitted to the deeper outer, and in the deeper outer, the historical Jin Bencun was also deified. And it doesn't end here because Gongquan Zhen was not only active in Meitan, the place where Guanghua Tan was located, but he also worked as spiritual medium in other counties such as Fenggang, Longquan, Zunyi, and Tongzi. So we can find ritual texts received by Jin Bencun but published in the spiritual altars located in these counties such as Fenggang Xian, Longquan Xian, and Tongzi Xian, and Zunyi Xian. So there was definitely a network of the deeper altars, and see our project is working on a map and a visualization of all these networks. So I'm also trying to figure out how to describe their connections, because all we have is published, edited ritual texts. So I'm trying to get the information from all these ritual texts to see if we can reconstruct their social networks. And I would also like to mention another religious context of the Sichuan-Guizhou connection. Actually, in another article, I was trying to prove the textual transmission between Sichuan and Guizhou in the mid-Late Qing period. For example, the 36部尊经, we now found the Qianlong edition, which is in sutra binding. It stated clearly that the Zunjing was from Qing Yanggong, which is a very important Taoist Temple in Chengdu. So the text was published in Qingyang, and there was one laity from Zhoujiang. It's also a place in Sichuan, but he is living in Zunyi in Guizhou. So I think he and his sons wanted to publish the 36部尊经, so they used the Qingyang edition as their basic edition when they published this very Qianlong edition in Guizhou Zunyi. So we can see that by the time of Qianlong, the 36部尊经 has already been transmitted from Qingyang in Chengdu, Sichuan to the Zunyi prefecture in Guizhou. And in late Qing, we find another edition, a commented edition of the 36部尊经, which was received by spirit writing, and the spirit writing medium was actually 广化坛拱权证. So we can say that the 36部 after the 36部尊经 was transmitted from Sichuan to Guizhou, it was also accepted and adopted and published by the Confucian authors. Furthermore, actually, it influenced back the Sichuan traditions. In late Qing, Xian'an also published their own edition of commented 36部尊经. They use this very specific edition as their base text. So anyway, it's another story about how 36部尊经 was transmitted from Sichuan to Guizhou, and then commented, revised, and transmitted back to Sichuan and influenced the traditions there. Another example is Linbao Wenjian and Xinxiang Miaoyu. These are two very important ritual texts compiled by Sichuan Taoist master Chen Fuxuan in mid-Qing. And among all these ritual texts we found in Guizhou, there are also some mid-Qing editions of Linbao Wenjian and Xinxiang Miaoyu there. But to what extent they influence the rituals and the ritual texts of Confucian authors, I have no answers now, but I would like to find it out if we can find any textual relationship between them. And I'm also very curious about whether Guangcheng Yizhi and Yizhi compiled by Chen Fuhui, which was very popular in Qing Dynasty Sichuan, were these rituals and ritual texts transmitted to Guizhou too, and did they influence the ritual traditions? I have no idea for now, but I'm very curious about it and see if we can find more evidence or interesting editions. So for now, I don't want to rush into any conclusion. Actually, you can see it is a very preliminary study of another kind of so-called popular Confucianism in the Southwest region in the mid to late Qing dynasty. And for now, the research is basically bibliographical and historical. And for the ritual text, we find that they were always trying to use Confucian rhetoric to unify the contents of the three teachings, as well as to incorporate the rituals and the practice of Taoism and Buddhism. We can see they follow the very structure of the Huanglu Zhai, the Yellow Register retreat. And so the focus of it's still an ongoing project, and the focuses of the future research is includes detailed content analysis with close reading of the ritual texts, of course, because they are very big collections. So I haven't gone through all the details yet. And then I'm very likely to going to compare these ritual texts with other texts, for example, the Guangcheng Yizhi and Linbao Wenjian Xingxiang Miaoyu, all these texts produced in and popular in mid-late Qing Sichuan, and of course also do some inter-regional comparison between Guizhou, Yunnan, and Sichuan, because we also find other Confucian authors in Sichuan and Yunnan. So the deeper author was not the unique, the only one, but we can also find such texts like 儒教科仪 or 儒教文简 or all these similar ritual texts in both Yunnan and Sichuan. But for now, I haven't collected enough, like I showed in this specific case. We are quite confident to reconstruct the whole context of the Doutan, the deeper outer. But for other traditions in Yunnan and Sichuan, I haven't collected enough evidence, so we'll keep digging and finding more materials. And also, I'm very curious about if there was any connection between the Southwest China and the modern Taiwan, because I think these kinds of traditions, such as Ru Zong Shen Jiao, they doesn't just pop out from nothing. I think they might have some very close connection with some kinds of similar traditions in late imperial China. So I would like to see if we can find out any real historical connections. And besides, of course, anthropological research. But recently, I found that on the TikTok, someone also uploaded the videos of Wenchang Doutan providing funeral services in contemporary Guizhou. So, but because of the COVID and myself being sloppy, I haven't started the anthropological project yet, but see if we can find more in the future. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and this is what I want to share today.
Okay, thanks. Let's see if you can stop sharing.
Yeah.
Fantastic talk, very, very rich. I'm so excited to see where this whole research is going. It was a wonderful, really deep dive into popular Confucianism and into the interregional network between Guizhou, Yunnan, and Sichuan, and amazing. Really, really amazing research, not only about the texts, which is in itself really difficult, as you showed, and you are doing all of this, also buying these volumes online and sort of really collecting all of these really difficult to find materials, but also starting to talk about movement of people across this network, which is really, really great. And obviously the next step, as you said, is to move and have a look at the network analysis, both of texts as well as of people. And so I'm very excited for this. And I'm just going to now, I have my own questions, but I'm going to let everybody else start with questions. So we could do, there's not very many of us, so you could either write in the chat, or you can put your yellow hand or your virtual hand up if you want to talk. I see that there is already a question by Vincent, and it looks like he can't talk, so I'm going to read it out for everybody. Dear Jiechen, this is mind-blowing, so many thanks. A question on Doutan as a category. In Jiangnan, during the same late Qing period, local elites organized as spirit writing groups performed Taoist rituals for free to people and sometimes called Doutan, but their Doutan means worshiping the Dipper, where they perform in public for local communities. In your own corpus, is there a particular focus on Doumu, Jiuhuang, and Lido rites?
Okay, maybe I can answer Wenchang's question first when if anyone else is.
In the meantime, if anyone else wants to write on the chat or put their hand up to prepare for other questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Wenchang, for this very good question. Actually, yes, I was trying to be very careful about Doutan because not only in Jiangnan, I also saw this Doutan tradition in Yunnan, but it referred to the Doumu. But here in this case, in the Wenchang Doutan, it has nothing to do with Doumu. I'm 100% sure about that. So actually, what I want to say is we have two different traditions, all named Doutan. One was dedicated to Wenchang only, especially in Guizhou, and another Doutan was more popular not only in. I guess I won't be surprised if I found another tradition named Doutan in Guizhou dedicated to Doumu. I won't be surprised. So we can find these Lido communities in both Yunnan and Jiangnan. One more thing is that in Jiangnan area, these two kinds of Doutan both existed in late Qing and early Republic China, because we are all aware of the Lido Doutan in Jiangnan, right? We see since late Ming, there are a lot of literati communities who were very interested in the Lido traditions, and so we can find a lot of these kinds of community. And I've also noticed an entry written by Chen Lianshen. He talked about that in somewhere near the Chenhuang Miao in early Republic China, there was a Wenchang Doutan there, and it is not the Lido Doutan, but very similar to the Doutan I shared today. So I guess in Jiangnan area, both two kinds of Doutan did exist, but do they have any connection, or they just happen to share the same name? I have no idea for now, but I was very happy to keep digging into that. Thank you very much.
Great. So next is Helen Rees. I don't know if Helen, if you want me to read your question or if you want to ask it yourself. Oh, okay. So I'm going to read the question. Oh, Helen. Oh, yes, you can.
Sorry, it took me a while to unmute myself. Yeah, I was wondering if you've come across mention of Daoguang in Guizhou. Obviously, they're all over Yunnan, quite a bit of Sichuan, even in Burma. Have you come across mention?
No, actually, I'm also very interested in the Daoguang network in Southwest China, but I haven't found solid evidence of Daoguang in in Guizhou for now. I won't be surprised if I find more of it, but you see, nowadays we have a lot of new materials in the rare book markets. All these are from Southwest China in late imperial period, and I found that many texts produced in Late Qing Yunnan connected both Daoguang and the Confucian authors. But no, because too many texts now, and I haven't gone through all of them, so I'm not 100% sure if they have some solid connection to each other. But I guess at least in Yunnan and Sichuan areas, so this Daoguang might come across with this network of Confucian authors. So because in my case, they mentioned that the Confucian authors also recruit Taoist ritual experts and Buddhist ritual experts to cooperate with them to perform rituals. So I guess all these local traditions, they do coexisted by that time. They might compete with each other, but in some cases they might even cooperated and to perform some bigger ritual or provide service to some big client, something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I'm also very interested into the Dongjing Hui, but I haven't established solid connection between Dongjing Hui with Confucian authors. I think these networks may overlap, but no. Yeah, it's still a bit difficult for me now to figure that out.
Thanks.
So there is a beginning of a question maybe by Fang Zhijun here. He says, "Dear Professor Hu," but I'm not sure if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question. Oh, yes. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask this question? I guess not. Okay, so yes.
Hello.
Yes, yeah, why don't you ask your question? Yeah.
I have a little question that I have seen several versions of Wenchang Shengdian or Wenchang Wendi Shengdian or Wenchang Quanji, Wendi Quanji. And I have seen that all these books they have divided two parts. One is 内涵 and the other is 外涵. I have this question. So I believe there are some reasons to do that. So but I don't know what's the difference between these two and the connections between these two. So Professor Hu, how do you think about that?
Yeah. Thank you very much for the question, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to share something in my PhD dissertation. Actually, yeah, I have seen like 20 different editions of Wenchang canons, and most of them follow the structure of the very first edition of Wendi Quanshu, and the 内涵 part refers to these scriptures, and the 外涵 part refers to these talismans and the registers and all this stuff. Because the chief editor Liu Qishu believed that all the scriptures, even the Wenchang Huashu or Wenchang Dadong, they belong to the Confucian tradition. So that made it the 内涵 esoteric. I would like to translate the 内涵 into esoteric case. So he said something like he has his own theology about the relationship between Confucianism and Taoism. He said, okay, the Confucianism part is the esoteric part, and the 外涵 is includes all the talismans, the registers, 文昌紫阳宝录, 文昌大洞至温宝录, all these kind of texts. Liu Qiao believes that these belonged to the Taoist tradition, so he categorized them into the 外涵. But Wenchang Shengdian was different from all of these editions, because I still believe Wenchang Shengdian was originally compiled by Jin Bencun, and if he was not a Taoist master, he was at least a ritual expert. So he put all these Taoist ritual texts and talismans and the registers into the 内涵, while all these scriptures into the 外涵. So he did the totally reversed on the original Wendi Quanshu. For now, that's all. Yeah, I don't want to go through all the details, but I think that's the way these two editors, they have different interpretation on all these text.
Okay, great. Do we have any other questions that
Liu 老师 is asking, I guess.
Liu 老师? I don't. Okay. Oh, Liu. Yeah. Liu Xun. Yeah.
I can very quickly speak about the questions that I have. Actually, this is really very rich and very sort of an in-depth look into the religious network, and especially based on Wenchang text and really the reproduction of the canonical text in the past as well. My question was really based on my own sort of work on Yunnan, and right now I'm working on a text I collected from a Japanese store, but not like you, who went to the southwestern regions and actually collected all these wonderful Wenchang texts. But this is the text actually that were formed and published during the Guangxu Nianjian. And there was a very high degree of the infiltration, or maybe you can say the filtration of Confucian canonical texts into it. And so when you when you were beginning your talk, there was a very nice set about Philip Clark's work on the Confucian altar. And I wonder, in your discovery of the text that you see in Wenchang, do you see what specific Confucian sages that are being enshrined, and to such a degree that we see as in Philip Clark's sort of a work as well? Or this is primarily still very locally based, not imperially, nationally kind of based religious canonical production? So that's my question.
Yeah. In this specific case, I mean, the Wenchang Doutan in North Guizhou, they always claim that we are not exclusive Confucianism. We are including all the three teachings, so the pantheon is quite wide. After the deified Confucius, there are also the Buddha and Sanqing and all these deities we are familiar with in the Taoist pantheon. I think some of the interesting part is, for example, the Zilu. All these, among all the disciples of the historical Confucius, Zilu played a very important role in these Confucian authors. My hypothesis is maybe the first hypothesis is that they are the location of the Confucian authors was in Sishui Zhan in Zunyi, and they also claim that because Confucius and Zilu were from Sishui, but the Sishui was the Shandong Sishui, right? Nothing to do with the Guizhou, but somehow I think, I don't know if they interpreted it intentionally, or otherwise they think that Kongzi and Zilu were born in the Guizhou Sishui. So they put Zilu in a very important role. And another hypothesis is Zilu played a role just like Wang Lingguan played in all these ritual practices. So I think this is very special in these kinds of Confucian authors, right? The Hufashen, or the guardian deity was Zilu rather than other Taoist generals. Although some Wang Lingguan and Xin Tianjun and other deities aspirating patron deities, but Zilu always played a more important role in that. And of course, the deified Confucius is always the highest deity in their pantheon.
I was actually having in mind more of the Neo-Confucian sages that you actually made mention as well in your setup.
Yeah.
And so it's the Song, it's the Song or the post-Song Li Xue and Dao Xue specifically. So such sages as Zhu Zi and
Chen and
Zhu Chen, and also these people. So I wondered about their role in at this altar, at this Dao that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So they were present.
Their names. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so they were also present in the Sichuan Doutan that you were talking. You know.
Yes, but in most cases, I only saw their names among the precious declarations, the 报告. We have all these Neo-Confucian sages, but I haven't seen them summoned in rituals, or have they deceased in spiriting? No, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. So only
this Yunnan, I was struck by the Yunnan text, in which, of course, there was a heavy presence of the Daoxue sages, along with all the others, the regular suspects, so to speak. So that's why I was curious. Maybe there was a connection of this Yunnan sort of altar with the ones that this is a pan sort of a southwestern part of China. So that's why I was curious and also quite intrigued with your work as well. So, thank you.
Yunnan is very different. I also saw a 旧结经 collection received in Yunnan by spiriting, and one of the 7 旧结经 was a 道德经 revealed by Confucius through spiriting. So,
this text was attributed to Wenchang, but it's actually a very Confucian sort of a 是道学宗旨. Have you come across this text somewhere?
No, 道学宗旨. No, I haven't.
I will email you.
Okay,
because it made mention of the Guizhou as well. The Guizhou that you were talking about earlier. So there may be connection is there. So.
Yeah. And another hypothesis is they might be also follow the Peng Dingqiu's way, because you see in Peng Dingqiu, in the Yuju tradition created by Peng Dingqiu, all these Neo-Confucian sages were deified as the minor deities of Wenchang, right? So some of them might follow Peng Dingqiu's way and think, okay, all these are very popular and prevailing spiriting deities in these so-called Confucian traditions.
Thank you.
So, Thank you very much for the question.
Great. Do we have, I don't see anything more in the chat. Do we have anyone else in the audience here who wants to ask further questions? No questions? Well, I just wanted to, oh yes, we do have a question. Han Junliang, please.
Thank you for your fascinating talk. From a page that you showed during the presentation, I saw a term 三天门下. It is a precisely a Taoist term. So I'm wondering if it's the term that the members of the group used to identify themselves when they performed rituals, or it was limited only to Taoist ritual. A larger question is how they identified themselves when they performed rituals. And another question is, we saw, so you have shown us several deities venerated by this group, Confucius, Zilu, etc. So what roles played by them, by these deities in the ritual? Thank you.
Yeah, let me see. Actually, for the very first question, no, I have no idea. Is that this one? 三天门下禁书以文.
Exactly.
Yeah. So here's the problem. I'm not very sure about where they like learn all the what's the textual source of all these ritual documents. I think they are, of course, they do not produce all these from nothing, right? They definitely follow some of earlier ritual texts, but I don't know which ones they followed. So they might be influenced by all these Linbao traditions, or even the Fajiao tradition in Southwest China, and all the Nuotan tradition. I have no idea. So I think it's a chimera of different kinds of ritual text. So for this specific term 三天门下, I don't know if they really have a very clear identification of the term, or they just copy this from earlier text, from the source text. So it's my very I don't have an exact answer to your first question. And for the second one, about their own identification, they claimed to be Confucianism. Of course, the emic term they used is Confucianism. So they always said, we follow the three teachings, but we are based on Confucianism. So 以儒教为本 or something like that. So that's why all other all the ritual experts from other traditions should sign their names as 崇儒奉道, 崇儒奉佛. So 崇儒 is the base of their identification. And but what did they do during the ritual? No, I have no idea, because all I know and all I have done is only textual study, actually. So I'm not very sure to what extent these texts were exactly used in the ritual. Maybe I can have more exact answers after I doing anthropological studies with the contemporary Wenchang Doutan in Guizhou. Maybe I'll figure out some answers. For now, what I have done is only textual and bibliographical studies. So I cannot answer to extent they and how much do they really use these kinds of texts in their real performing of ritual, actually. But anyway, thank you very much for the good question. It's very inspiring. I will think about that later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have another question by Shiga Sensei, and maybe she wants to ask the question herself. Professor Shiga.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your excellent presentation. I just asked most of Confucian authors in Sichuan and Yunnan worship Quanke as the main deities, and they called Quanke as Chonghuan Dadi,
yes,
or Chonghuan, or Quanke Dan Yihuang. This legend. So in Guizhou, Guizhou's authors, are there any similar idea? Similar idea in Guizhou, deeper authors in Guizhou?
Not yet. Actually, I'm also wondering if we can find these similar traditions, such as Zixia tradition in Sichuan, right? But since Guizhou was deeply influenced by the Sichuan tradition, as we can see that maybe their rituals and texts were highly influenced by the Sichuan regions. But for now, I haven't found the influence of Zixia tradition in Guizhou, not yet, but I won't be surprised if I find any. And we see we have an expert on 紫霞坛 here, except besides Xia. Yeah, Zhu Mingchuan is here. Mingchuan, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, have you found anything of Zhonghuang in Guizhou?
Sorry,
I
I
only
have,
saw them in Sichuan, maybe Yunnan, but not yet in Guizhou.
well, sorry, I have not found any details about the cult of Zhonghuang Dadi or Zhonghuang Tianzun in Guizhou region, but maybe in some region like in Yunnan and Sichuan, there's some altars called Xiaotan, or maybe in other name like Rutan or Shengtan. It just worships the Zhonghuang Dadi here, but as you mentioned, I would not be very surprised when we just find that there's some Zixia altars in Guizhou region. Maybe in the future we will find that. And so maybe that's all.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Great.
And
go ahead.
Just a quick comment. Yes, Guandi was also worshipped in these Confucian altars, but not as the how to say most active patron deity. So Wenchang played the most important role, and
Wenchang is the main deity.
Yeah, is the main deity. So yeah, Guandi had a very high he was regarded as a very important deity, but was not the main one, and didn't. I think all these ritual text was revealed by Wenchang, and sometimes Guandi and Lüzu will contribute a preface to this ritual text. But so you can see this kind of structure. Yeah.
Maybe we should just check the catalog of the ritual text first. Like if you just find if there is some Guandi Biao or Yu Huang Biao here, that would refer to that there's no cult of Zhonghuang Tianzun here, because the Guandi have not replaced the Yu Huang Yizhi temple here.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I can double check that. You see, so right. So if we have these ritual documents appointed to Guandi or Yu Huang specifically, then he was not regarded as Zhonghuang, right? Yeah. That's brilliant. Yeah, I will double check it. And thank you very much, Shiga Sensei.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for Hu Jiechen? If I can add to this last discussion, so of Wenchang and Guandi, then when you talk about the deified Confucius, was he? You mentioned that he was very important to in this context, in this tradition, but was he transmitting any text, or was he there? So what's the relationship between the community, the deified Confucius, but the fact that Wenchang was really the main important deity? Does that say something about the Confucianness of this group?
Yes, as far as I know, that for most of these Confucian altars, the deified Confucius always play a very important role, or was regarded as the highest deity, but he seldom deceased as a spiriting deity. Sometimes he did, but not always time. In most cases, he doesn't reveal any text, just like we haven't seen much Taoist scriptures revealed through spiriting directly from Sanqing, right? So usually 三清 or 元始天尊 he 说某某经 right? So but the revealer of the scripture is another deity such like Wenchang Yizhi or other deities, but 三清 never descended himself. Descended by himself, right? So in most cases, Kongzi didn't descended by himself, so we cannot see any text transmitted directly from him. But in some very specific cases, just like I said, that we found some text in Yunnan was revealed by Kongzi, and also with the title 新卢正式天尊, just like we saw in these Sichuan and Guizhou Confucian authors. So I think they have very different imagination on how they see Kongzi and how or what kind of role he played in this pantheon.
Great. Good. Any other questions, comments for Jiechen? Okay, so maybe we'll end here. This was a fantastic and very rich talk, and thank you for giving this wonderful talk. Thank you everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next at our next talk, which is going to be given by Volker Olles on December 18th, and so it's all on our. Let me just actually put the link to our talks really quickly. Sorry, let me just put this in our chat, so maybe you can check out the rest of our talks. So I look forward to seeing everybody at our next talk, and thank you all for coming, and thank you, Jiechen, for giving such a fantastic talk. I'll see you at the next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all for coming. Bye.
Bye.
Good day. Good day. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.